Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining our Collaboration Best Practices webinar. My name is Anna, and I'm a member of the product marketing team here at Smartsheet. Our learning objectives for today's collaboration webinar are going to be to understand the different user types that you have available through Smartsheet, the permissions and how that can affect the actions you can take, how to collaborate effectively, meaning sharing your sheet directly as well as using automation, forms, and dashboards, and then how to inform in real time. So again, using automation and dashboards to make sure that everyone in your organization who needs to know the status of your work can access it in the right way. Before we jump into our demo, let's talk about Smartsheet user types. The largest user type that we have is a Smartsheet admin, and a Smartsheet admin has the ability to assign licenses, control account settings, and security options for enterprise plans. Most users are not going to have admin permissions. The next user group we have is licensed users. Licensed users have the ability to create sheets, reports, and dashboards, as well as access to resource viewer and group admin permissions, which can be enabled by your Smartsheet admin. Unlicensed users are not creators. So unlicensed users can access the sheet that's been shared to them, make updates in the sheet, so making sure they can keep statuses updated, add comments and attachments, all things we're going to look at in our demo today. What unlicensed users cannot do is create their own sheets, reports, or dashboards. This is where they would need a Smartsheet license if they wanted to create new items. For our demo today, we're going to use a template set that can be found in our Solution Center. As you can see here, this template set includes sheets, reports, and dashboards to help you manage a complete request management workflow. I already have this template set downloaded, and when you download this template set, you'll see a folder in your Sheets folder with all of these items included. To find this template set as well as others, you can always click the plus button on the left panel of your Smartsheet. You can either browse or search directly for the topics that you'd like to find a template for. Now, when you're collaborating in Smartsheet, most of the time you're going to get started with a sheet. That is the core of everything that you're going to do. I'm going to open my request tracker sheet, which has a form included, and we can use this to talk about the different ways to collaborate using Smartsheet. Most of the time when you're collaborating, you're going to be inviting people into your sheet directly. And what that means is I can come up here to the top right and click the share button and then start inviting others to collaborate in my sheet, update cells, statuses, and get the information that they need. I can start typing, and this will auto-populate with people I can collaborate with that are part of my organization or others I've collaborated with before. Or if I don't see someone's name pop up, that's not a problem. You can type in an email address or paste email addresses, and really you can collaborate with anyone that has an email address. Even if they've never used Smartsheet before, they will get an email just prompting them to create a login with their email address and set up a password, and then they can come into your sheet, update their tasks, and see the information that you want them to see. When you're inviting others into your sheet, you of course want to be able to indicate the type of permissions they should have. So starting at the very basic level, you can invite others to be viewers, which means of course they can come into your sheet, they can see everything that you see today on my screen, but they can't make any changes. The most common permission is going to be editor, and editor means you can visit the sheet when you need to, you can see all the information, and you can update cells, columns, and rows and add new rows. As you can see, editor permissions are also split into two, so you can indicate whether your editor can share, meaning they can invite others to your sheet, or cannot share. The difference between editors and our next level, which is admin, is that admins have the ability to actually change your sheet structure, meaning they can change column types, add or remove columns, move columns around, and set up automations that can be sent to anyone in your sheet. What you might see in the background is that I also have a column that is locked called days to completion. Locked columns are another differentiator between admins and editors. Admins are able to lock columns and they can actually update in a lock column. Once you lock a column, anyone who is an editor or a viewer cannot make changes in that column. And I personally always lock a column that I'm going to use formulas for to make sure others cannot override my formula. We'll go ahead and click Share Sheet now, and as I mentioned, Kirk is going to get an email letting him know he can now access my sheet. Kirk is one of the designers who's on my team, and what I want to do in this sheet is set up a process that does a couple different things. First, we're going to work in this sheet, and I can see that I have design tasks that I've assigned to others on my team using my Assign To column. And I also want to be able to intake information. So when others need design work done, I want them to be able to add rows to my sheet without actually having access to my sheet. And I want to be able to use Smartsheet automation to get the right information to and from the right people at the right time. Lastly, I want to make sure we can report on everything that's going on in this sheet. So we're going to look at all of those pieces together as we go through the rest of this demo. Now, as I mentioned, my team is already able to work directly in here because I'm going to be sharing my sheet with all of my designers using that share button we just looked at. We're also going to take our collaboration to the next level, and instead of working just in my rows and columns, we're going to take advantage of a couple functionalities that Smartsheet has that allow us to use Smartsheet as an overall source of truth for all of the design work that we're doing. What you'll see over here on the left side is that I have an attachments column, and in row 2, I have a little paperclip icon. Attachments columns are a great way for us to take the work that we have and actually link it to the exact corresponding task that that work is fulfilling. So for example, in row 2, where my task is to create a webinar graphic, I can see that there is an attachment, and the attachment is the graphic that's been requested. And I can also see, of course, the date, time, and person who added that attachment. You can attach from a lot of different sources, and you can attach a lot of different file types. So of course we can attach images as you see here, videos, PowerPoints, PDFs, any documents that are going to make it easier for your team to know what is saved where. I know a lot of the time part of the challenge is really just remembering where something is stored, and attachments are a great way to put everything exactly where it needs to go. Next up for collaboration, we also have our comments column, and that also has an option on every single row so we can have conversations about the work we're doing. This is extremely helpful because I know we've all sent emails, chatted in person, sent pings, or used collaboration apps, and then we've either forgotten or we're not sure where to find the information we need. This also creates a lot of tribal knowledge across our team because not everyone has been participating in the same conversations. Instead, comments are a great way to have those conversations where you can come in here, talk about the items you're working on, take notes, and if I need to, I can even bring attention to my comments by using an @ mention. With an @ mention, you're going to type in the @ symbol and then start writing in the name of someone you want to tag. And you can even see that I've got a drop down here. So if I want to get Kirk's attention with my message, I can add his name. I can even add an attachment, so a file directly to my comment, and then post so it gets added to the comment history. This is visible to anyone who has access to my sheet, so a great way to make sure we are all on the same page about the work that we are doing. Now, in addition to working directly in the sheet, my process also requires that I share parts of my sheet or intake information without inviting others to view all of the details that my team has in here. The first way that we're going to do that is by using Smartsheet forms. Now, forms can be added to any of your sheets, and all you have to do is come up here to the top of the page and select the Forms drop-down menu. You'll see we've got a link to our help article, so if you need a refresher after this training, we've got a direct video for you there. And my favorite thing about Smartsheet forms is really how simple they are to create. When I click Create Form right here, what Smartsheet is going to do is actually take every single column that I have in my sheet and turn it into a question on a form that it's created for me. From here, if I'm ready to go, if this is what I want my form to look like, I'm done. All I have to do is click Save. I can, of course, make changes, update formatting, add or remove questions, and so on. As I mentioned, the sheet we have here is going to be used to intake design requests, but we're also going to be tracking assignment status and so on. So I can come in here and actually remove some of these because they're not a field on my form. They're just something that I want to track in my sheet. With each of these questions, you also have some additional options that allow you to make fields required, hidden, or have a default value, as well as add some custom labels and help text. So a lot of different options to make sure you get exactly the form you need to intake information into your sheet. Now, I'm not going to go through and recreate the form I need because I actually already have one here. This design form, I've removed all of the columns I don't need, and I've added all the help text that I do. And I actually have a tab open here already with the form. You'll see I've completed the date I need my design request by, my design description, and I've used all capitals just so we can see really easily when this gets added to my sheet. And of course, any attachments, choosing my department, and then typing in my manager's email. I can also flag this as urgent. When I'm all set, I'm going to go ahead and click Submit, and this is added as a new row to my Smartsheet. The really great thing about forms is that I can actually share my form with anyone as well as with an unknown audience. And I can come up here to the top of the page where we saw the forms option originally. Under Manage Forms, I have a URL I can share with anyone. So I can email this out, post it somewhere, etc. And I can click More. And what you're going to see is I can send a link to a form, which is going to look very similar to how we set up sharing our sheet, or I can get an embed code. And that means I can actually take my form and embed it into my website, into a Smartsheet dashboard, which you'll see later, and so on. So a lot of different ways to share this. For me, what forms accomplish is they actually allow me to intake rows into my sheet from anyone in my company. And that way, as soon as the sheet is completed, I now have a new row, and I know that I need to get to work having this assigned to someone on my team and making sure that this person is accomplishing their work. One thing that I don't want to do is that I don't want to stay in my sheet all the time just in case a new request is added so I can assign someone immediately. What I want to do instead is use Smartsheet automation to send me notifications or to ask me to assign somebody to a task anytime a new row is added. That way I can do the rest of my job, I can be on the road, and I can accomplish all of this through my mobile device or on my computer, whatever is most convenient at the time. We'll go ahead and click on Alerts and Actions at the top of our page. And just like with forms, first thing to mention is there's a great help video at the bottom that you can click on to look through all of the options for alerts and actions. As you can see, there's a lot of different options here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I already have a rule created for us. And what this rule says is anytime that there's a new row added to my sheet, I want to send an update request to myself. So what that means is I'm going to send myself the new row that's been added and ask myself to update it by assigning someone on my team to complete the design task. You can actually see this in action already because up here in the top right in my notification center, I've got a little red bell that has popped up. This is telling me there's a new design request. I can open my update request up and it's going to give me all of the information about the new task that's been submitted. I can submit this through my desktop as you're seeing me do right now, or I can do this directly through my email or in my Smartsheet mobile app if I'm on the road. So a lot of different ways for me to assign somebody making sure that I'm not spending too much time waiting for my sheet to have new tasks, and making sure that I'm getting this information as soon as I need to. When I click Submit now, my row in the background is going to update with the newly assigned person. And you can see we usually turn it blue just to get your attention really quickly when there's an update being made. What we just saw in action is an update request, and as we saw earlier, there's a lot of different types of automation you can set up for your sheet. All of Smartsheet's automations really have 3 steps to them. One, you're setting up a trigger, which means what action do I want to happen in my sheet? 2, you're setting conditions, so any additional rules you want to add. And 3, you're choosing your action, so what should happen when our trigger takes place. Let's go ahead and choose Alert Someone and walk through the motions of creating an automation in Smartsheet and seeing those steps in action. What I want to do is, instead of having to let someone on my team know that they have a new task assigned, I want Smartsheet to take care of that step for me. So I'm going to select Manage Alerts and Actions. I'm going to choose Alert Someone, and that's basically sending them an FYI that the trigger action happened, and I'm going to click Create. Now, what I'm going to set up at the top of my page is anytime that a row is changed, and what I really want to know is not any change in my sheet. I want to make sure that if my Assign To column changes, I can add a condition, so if there's any additional rules I want to add, and then I can alert somebody. Who am I sending this alert to? Now for my update request, I sent every single update request to myself because I'm the design team manager. In this case, what I want to do is send to contacts in a cell, which allows me to actually designate my Assign To column. And this means anytime my Assign To column changes, we're going to notify exactly the person whose row has been updated. So it doesn't matter if I have 5 or 50 people on my team, only the person that's being assigned will receive each alert. As you saw here, there's a lot of different options for alerts. So you can send it to individual people, or you can even use Microsoft Teams or Slack as a destination for your Smartsheet automation. I can then also customize my message, my schedule, and so on. And I typically add a name to my alert. So what I'm going to do is call this New Design Task and click Save. Now I know that I don't have to take any extra steps because every time I assign somebody to a task, that person will be notified by Smartsheet and they can come right into the sheet and get to work. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of different automations that you can add to your sheet, and I wanted to just give you some examples, even using this sheet, of what you can set up to take work off of your own plate. Now, we already looked at alerting someone. Another option for that is to take our requester name column, so the person who's requesting each design task, and let them know every time the status is updated. So we can actually automate your status has now become in progress, your status has now become closed, and so on. Another option we can do is to create a reminder based on the date needed by, and remind the Assign To person maybe a day before their task is due, maybe 2 days before, whatever meets our need. We can also set up an approval workflow. So you'll see I've got a manager's email column, and I can actually get approval from a manager automatically before I start assigning tasks and having my team work on these items. So there's a lot of automation that can take place to allow Smartsheet to own my process and take all of this work off of my plate, saving me a lot of time and making sure we're working as efficiently as possible. Now, what we've looked at so far here is we've looked at how to share a sheet directly and collaborate as a team, how to intake information from others outside of our sheet, and of course, how to use Smartsheet automation to make sure that we're working as efficiently as possible and getting the right information to and from the right people at the right time. The last step in collaboration is reporting. So we want to make sure that we're providing statuses of all this work, and we want to do that by actually looking at the Smartsheet dashboard that came with my template set. Now, one of the great things about template sets is they are very flexible. As soon as you download it, you can add changes. So you can change the columns in your sheet, which I did a little bit, and you can continue to make modifications to your dashboard. As I mentioned, there was an embed option with the form we looked at earlier, and I actually added this form to my dashboard. This brings us right back to having Smartsheet as a source of truth, because this dashboard is something that I can share with my entire company. And what we're going to see here is they can come to my dashboard, submit requests, check on the status of requests, and get links to key resources over here on the left side of the page. Your Smartsheet dashboard is completely customizable, so I've chosen every piece of information that's on here, and I can continue to modify to make sure the right information is available for people in my company. Best part is I can share this with anyone without sharing my underlying sheets, forms, or reports, meaning that others in my organization have exactly the information I've chosen and don't have access to all of the details that my team is working on. Dashboards, just like sheets, have a share button at the top of the page, and the only difference here is there are actually two permissions. Dashboards don't have cells, rows, and columns for us to update, so you're going to be a viewer, which means you can fill out the form, click on or view any of the content, or you're going to be an admin, which means you can actually change the content of the dashboard, adding, removing, or moving around widgets. Another way to share in Smartsheet is to publish. And what you'll see at the top right of our page is a globe. You'll also find this on your sheets. Globes allow you to effectively turn your Smartsheet item into a publicly accessible website. So when I turn on my publishing, I get a link that I can share with others or easily bookmark. And I can open that link even without being signed into Smartsheet. By publishing, I've said anyone who visits this URL can access my dashboard just like they would a website. The last thing that I want to share with everyone about Smartsheet collaboration is that there's a way to collaborate effectively with your team using workspaces. So far as sharing goes, we've looked at sharing your individual sheet or your individual dashboard. And of course, once you spend a lot of time in Smartsheet, you're going to have a lot of sheets, plenty of dashboards, and items being shared across teams and across departments. All of this can be found by going to your left panel and heading over to the Home section. And if you want to make it easier to share with your team, you can create a workspace. And that's really easy. You just right click and select Create New Workspace. I already have one created for my design team. A workspace effectively allows you to share with a group of people instead of sharing one item at a time. I can click Share in the top right of the page, start typing in the names of people who are on my team, or even click the item that I have right here. And you can see I can choose from everybody on here. I can choose my permission just like I would with a sheet, and then I can share my workspace. I can notify people just like I would with my sheet as well. Once I've done this, everyone on my team will have access to everything in my workspace. So if we take our template set items, I'm going to select everything that came in that template set. I can move it into my workspace. And now with this one action, I've shared all 4 of those items with everyone in my workspace. This is really great because when a new person joins or leaves the team, I can just come into workspace sharing and I don't have to go into my 4 items or 40 or 400, depending on how much work you have, and remember to unshare from every individual item. I can also share these items individually. So you'll see for my sheet request tracker, I've got a +1. You can always right click on an individual item and share it. And you'll see when I type in an email address, I now can share either just the sheet or the entire workspace. So again, allowing you to share in bulk and really make sure your team has one place to go for everything that they're working on. Now, as we come back from our demo, I want to take some time to recap our best practices and then look at some of the questions that have come in along the way. So to start with our recap, the most important thing with Smartsheet is that most of the time you're going to share your sheet directly using the 4 sharing permissions. So admin, our 2 editor levels, as well as viewer. The rest of the collaboration options we reviewed today are going to help us control and intake information and share information when we don't want to share our sheets. So forms are a great way to allow others to add a row to your sheet and to intake from an unknown audience without having to share your sheet. Automation is a great way to let people know what's happening in a sheet or automate processes and intake information, again, without sharing your sheet or with sharing. Automation can help in both scenarios. And dashboards are a great customizable way to share and report on information. And you have a lot of control with your dashboard, meaning you can choose exactly the information you need to include and who you need to share it with without having to share the underlying sheets or reports if you want to keep some of those details for yourself. Additionally, Smartsheet has the ability to publish your sheets, reports, or dashboards, which effectively makes those items act as a website. So if you publish something, that URL can be shared with anyone, regardless of whether they have a Smartsheet login or are shared to that item directly. So if you have a dashboard with status you want to share with your entire company, or if you're working with a customer outside of your organization, you can publish and share that URL, and it makes it really easy to bookmark as well, since you won't have to sign in to access a published item. Now, I wanted to move on to some of the questions that we've received along the way. Now, a really common question that we hear is, can I collaborate with users outside of my company? And that's a great question. Yes, you can. So with Smartsheet, you can collaborate, meaning you can share with anyone that has an email address. If that user is an existing Smartsheet user, they'll be able to log in and see the items you've shared with them. If this person you're sharing with has never used Smartsheet before, we will ask them to create a login using their email address and creating a password. So don't be afraid to share with others in your organization, partners you have outside of your company. All of them are able to collaborate on your work, even if they're not currently a Smartsheet user. It looks like some of you have been trying to replicate some of the automation that we did today in your own Smartsheet accounts. And another question that has come up in this area is, how can I set up automation for other people? Smartsheet is saying I can only set it up for myself. That's a great question, and this is a very specific scenario you'll come across. Automation can be set up by licensed sheet admins or owners. So there's two different levels at play. You need to have a Smartsheet license, and on that specific sheet, you need to either be the owner or the admin. If you are an editor or a viewer, the automation you set up can only go to yourself, meaning you can't automate something that's going to go to everyone on the sheet unless you're an admin or an owner. Our last question that we have is specifically about the template used. I know a lot of you have started to create your own dashboards, maybe again are following along, and there's some questions about how to build the dashboard that I had today. As a reminder, I did actually use one of the templates available in our Solution Center. So when you're signed into Smartsheet, on the left side of the page, click the plus button. And the one I used is called Request Management. And it's a complete template set that has a couple different pieces in it that are all connected. So the sheet and the report and the dashboard that you saw today. These are fully customizable, so it's going to look a little bit different than mine because I did make some changes. I deleted some columns to make my sheet a little bit simpler, and I added a form to my dashboard. So just a couple changes I made so the template that I got from Smartsheet fits my exact use case, and you can do that yourselves as well. Additionally, we've got the Learning Center I just mentioned, as well as a Smartsheet support team available to help you. So thanks everyone for joining today, and we hope to see you next time.